We've got the latest on the investigation surrounding that fire that happened here at Bamsey in North Andros overnight. I'm Altaviz Munnings. Here are the details coming up in the Bahamas tonight.
Plus, ZNS on the scene of another blaze, this one right here in Nassau.
And we've got highlights from high school basketball. The Bahamas tonight, the national report starts now.
Now in HD. ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. This portion of the news brought to you by BTC Every Day.
Police tonight are trying to find out the cause of the fire that tore through a dorm at Bamsey. Good evening, everyone. I'm Kendino Knowles.
And I'm Opal Roach. Thanks so much for joining us. Well, authorities say that 2 security officers are assisting police in their investigation into that blaze, which was confined to one of the buildings on the campus. Altaviz Munnings was the only reporter on the ground early this morning.
A small fire could be seen billowing from the building consumed by fire overnight at the Bahamas Agricultural and Marine Science Institute in North Andros. It was shortly after 6:30 Thursday night when Andros police received the anonymous call about the blaze that destroyed the majority of Bamsey's male dormitory under construction. Smoke damage covered most of the structure. The roof was destroyed, as well as the building's top floor. It took a while, but volunteers and New Providence Fire Services officers assisted their Andros colleagues in extinguishing the overnight blaze.
And we got the electrical experts, BEC, and some other persons down here to just safeguard the integrity of what we were trying to do here.
In many of our family islands, there are no fire resources which are available, and so sometimes you have to resort to improvising from a localized perspective.
Deputy Prime Minister and the Minister of Works and Urban Development, the Honorable Philip Davis, led a senior government delegation on a tour of the site early Friday morning. Police outlined the details of their initial probe and illustrated what parts of the building sustained the most damage. Ministry of Works engineers also surveyed the structure to make a final determination on what will happen next.
It appears that we may be able to salvage a lot of what has been done. And unfortunately, as you would have seen, the roof, this building was at least 85% or more complete. The roof has been destroyed. A sister building, as you can see, which is just across the street, to compare what damage has been done from a physical observation, you just need to look at the building that's next door across the street and this, and you can see, you could compare what has happened to this building.
I think the government position is firm and resolute. Bamsey is not going to stop.
There were, more than likely, there were about 50 rooms for male students, and obviously the female dorm would have had an additional 50 students. So, you know, even if it takes some time to get this up, we can also always split that building into 2 and use it for both male and female until this one is completed.
Bamsey and the North Andros will rise above this. It is just amazing to think that people can do something like this at a time like this. This will not stop the government's plan for North Andros and Bamsey.
Contractor Audley Hanna was about to complete the building in a few weeks. He's ready, though, to reconstruct the building once given the green light. And I understand the government say they may salvage this. Is that good news for you?
Well, the engineers got to do what they got to do. Once they check it out, and if they realize that they ain't safe, they'll make a report, and they just got to do what they say.
Police here in Andros, along with their counterparts at the fire branch, say they still don't know the exact cause of Thursday night's fire. However, they tell us it may take several weeks for them to complete this investigation. Reporting from Bamsey in North Andros, I'm Altaviz Munnings, ZNS Network News.
Well, in other news tonight, firefighters were also busy last night battling another blaze, this time in the capital. Authorities were called to Wolf Road after 8, where they found a 2-story structure on fire. They were able to contain the blaze before it spread to neighboring buildings. Investigations continue.
In other news, Police Staff Association members headed to the polls today to vote for branch board members. As Fern Carey tells us, it's the first step in the process to electing a new executive team and chairman to head the organization that represents the interest of over 2,000 police officers.
Assistant Superintendent of Police Bradley Sands said voter turnout was high as police officers voted for a new executive team in the Police Staff Association elections. He added that there were few glitches with the process.
Are coming out in large numbers. To my surprise, they're coming out in large numbers, and they are voting for the team of their choice. And so elections is going very well. I anticipate that we'll have a long night counting based on the amount of persons that have nominated in the various ranks. Like the Constable's Branch Board have roughly but 27 persons that nominated to fill the 14 vacancies that exist. In the Corporal's Branch Board, we have roughly about 35 corporals that nominated to fill the 14 vacancies that exist. In the Sergeant's Branch Board, we have 17 sergeants that have nominated to fill the 6 vacancies that exist. And in the Inspector's Branch Board, we have 4 inspectors nominated to fill the 3 vacancies.
Sands said the Family Islands process was practically glitch-free. And for the first time in PSA elections, 2 independent persons provided oversight to ensure that the process is fair and transparent.
Some concerns that persons were concerned that the persons running the elections might have had some leaning towards the left or to the right. So to add transparency to the process, we have brought in the Bishop Stewart to assist as an observer at the polling station at the Police College. We have the Chief Coroner, who is the presiding officer, the returning officer. I'm only the coordinator. She's the returning officer, and she has spent at least an hour by every poll this morning.
Once all of the results are in, a recount will take place on Saturday. Then on Monday, the executive committee will be selected, and that committee will choose a new executive chairman.
Police officers will be casting their ballots until 5 p.m. this afternoon when the polls close. However, all of the results are not expected to be in until about 11 tonight, as results are still coming in from the Family Islands. Fern Carey, ZNS Network News.
Melia Resort employees participating in a strike vote today. Those workers are at odds over the gratuity issue. Scores of them took to the polls with their union reps supporting them.
Now, Carla Palmer tells us that the hotel union boss calls on the resort's management to do the right thing.
Hotel Catering and Allied Workers Union, Nicole Martin, says the strike vote exercise is another level of expression of dissatisfaction by Melia employees as they fight for their rights. She says gratuities have been part of the bargaining agreement for over 20 years under the former hotel. Granted, Melia is a new hotel entity. She says if this condition must now change, it will not change without a fight.
Every time we met, they brought new information. They gave us the impression that they were going to go all-inclusive 100%. On the 26th of November, we found out that that's not the case, that they were going to maintain what happens out there already, where they have all-inclusive and what is known as an EP program. So how would that affect? Well, really and truly, the gratuity structure that is in place for specifically that setup. It is therefore EP and all-inclusive combined. So in the union's view, there is no need to change it. Because if it was in place for over 20 years, what exactly are you changing and why? And those are the questions that we cannot get answers to.
Martin emphasized that companies coming into the hotel industry must understand, especially of existing operations, that things can only change through negotiations.
It seemed to be the modus operandi of people coming in, that they believe they have a right to just change rules, regulation, policies, and the take-home of our people at whim. In this country, we have been suffering with the downturn in the economy for a very, very long time. And when you talk about a general decline in the economics, you have to examine the specifics. In the hotel industry, things are not always good. So when they are good, they are great. And when they are bad, they are horrid. So we have to ensure that anyone coming in does not take our workers from being able to feed their children to below the poverty line. What this company wants to do, in our estimation, is to increase the poverty level in our country by sending hotel workers from making a good living to where they are barely scratching the surface. Malia has taken the top layer of Bahamians out of their operation.
Carla Palmer, ZNS Network News.
And this just in, Union Secretary General Darren Wood says members overwhelmingly voted to strike today. Wood said 226 voted and only 1 said no to a strike. He added that 126 union members came from Atlantis to vote, but couldn't because it was a Malia issue. The union says they are waiting for the strike certificate, and once approved, they say they will call on the 6,000 members of the union to join them in the strike. Now, ZNS News will be following this developing story over the weekend.
Shifting gears, the United States overnight announced sweeping changes to rules governing trade relations between that country and Cuba that will considerably ease sanctions on the island nation. The new rules are designed to open the door for increased travel, trade, and expanded financial activity. However, free touristic travel is still banned for now. Among them, Americans will be able to travel to Cuba for 12 reasons and no longer need to secure a special license to travel. Americans are also allowed to travel with a maximum of $10,000 and can now use credit and debit cards. The new rules also enable them to send a maximum of $8,000 to Cuba annually. On the trade front, American companies can now transport telecommunications, agricultural, and construction equipment and open banking relations.
Now, executives of the Teachers Union deal with internal issues. Education Minister, the Honorable Jerome Fitzgerald, says progress is still being made to reach an industrial agreement. Speaking at a leadership conference at Queen's College last evening, Mr. Fitzgerald gave an update on the status of negotiations.
I mean, that's progressing very well. There was a meeting yesterday with the negotiating team from the Ministry of Education and the Bahamas Union of Teachers. I understand it was very productive. At the next meeting, which I think will be next week, Wednesday, I will meet with them to get an update on exactly where they are. We expect that those issues will be ironed out relatively shortly so that we can get to the key issue, really, which is financial matters. And so we're hoping that we can come to an agreement on that relatively shortly.
And coming up, find out why these protesters hit the streets today.
And then we've got highlights from high school basketball. You're watching the Bahamas Tonight.
This portion of the news is brought to you by Shell Ultra Low Sulfur Diesel.